We are.
Welcome to the first Saturday of the month when we have roundtables. We talk about our projects and how to move them forward. And if you want to join, there's a link on the Game Bee Projects Facebook group to come and tell us about your project. No one's watching, but in case someone was rewatching,
Right.
that's gotta.
And then the link won't work, so don't use it.
Oops, let's not yell at Tirza. I kept looks on.
You tell her that we're doing this.
Well, she had asked if we're meeting.
Okay.
Like, no, the first one's not the. It's the last one though was the 5th month or 5th week, right? So anyway, yes. Do you want to update on your project?
Sure. I mean, I'm still on the trying to hire somebody on Upwork stage. I've been working on the job posting, and just through trying to work on the specs, sort of realized I don't know much about the technology that it seems likely they'll end up using, with it being Firebase being one of them. So I've been watching some videos on that and sort of understanding the database structure, which has helped quite a bit because I didn't understand sort of exactly what it was doing and not doing, and how the data was going to be structured with some of the stuff that Bentley and Matouche were recommending, which just didn't make sense to me from a database standpoint. So that's been helping. I mean, a massive sort of side mission, I guess. But yeah, it's been useful in trying to figure out exactly what the next steps are. I think some of the parts that I thought I was going to have to do, no, they're built in. I just have to sort of, there might be a layer to make it a bit easier to understand, or almost make it less flexible in ways. But that's been good. But no real movement aside from discovering that I have more stuff to learn.
Makes sense. It's like before putting our projects out into the world. I'll get to mine in a second, but it's like you get it as perfect as possible. I don't think you possibly could get anything. Like, you have to break it in public before you can actually improve it for real. Which is why when someone's project's already perfect, what's the solution raising? I'm kind of missing doing solution raisings. I keep offering it to people on TikTok. It doesn't come off well in the someone was like, you need to use layperson's language. I'm like, no, but solution raising is my word, and it's like everything's complex.
Yeah, exactly. That's the name of it. You can't.
Daniel. Oh, yeah. Yay, Daniel probably has stuff actually going on since he's about to launch. Okay, so solution raising, I want to, I put out a TikTok that was like, hey, comment an area you want a solution raising on, and the TikTokers you would want to do it, and then doing it live, even though there wouldn't be a recording of it. Anyway, so I don't really know how to find people for solution raisings so that it can happen somewhat regularly. But peer coaching is going all right. It seems to be growing rather naturally. There was 1 week no one showed up, and it was perfect. Kylie and I worked on our 5 points to make a brave space. And I feel like it seems to be a really good way, at least for me, to be in a project, to have 1 hour where we meet and another 2 or 3 hours of, volunteer time on top of that. I feel like that's actually a project management system for people who can work full time and still get projects done. But there isn't anything with peer coach. I really want someone who has admin work, and someone who can do the likes admin work and is good at it, right? Sending emails, I don't know how, but organized, all the things that Game Bee people don't seem to be. We all have the same skill set of big thinkers and problem solvers, and we need and then the networking piece of it, the one who can actually kind of invite in more people. I don't want to invite in the masses. I don't want 1,000 people to join. I want it to be those individual connections, but someone who is a connector, right? Someone who has dozens of people they know, who knows hundreds of people. I feel like it's a bit pulling teeth to get my acquaintances and my friends to peer coaching when they don't, and figuring out how to give the bigger vision without giving the bigger vision. The other part of it, to bring in the Game Bee type people who are listen, this is a way for us to get to a critical mass of people with a critical mass of funds, so we can create all of the projects that we haven't even thought up yet. Yeah. because the critical, they think like, well, where's the scam? It's like, by all means, come ask questions, but I'm not going to put it out into the world on YouTube or on, on TikTok. And before, it was a 6-week course, and they were introduced to that in the 6th week, and now we're going to figure out when to introduce it, and as people ask questions. And should be curious to if Daniel knows what's going on in beer coaching and We Weave, because I feel like I've talked like around it so much without, I don't know if I've ever had an actual I think we did, though. I feel like we had a conversation previously as to what We Weave is. Anyway, there's nothing directly that I need help with. Just if the universe could let me save the world already, that'd be great. All right, Daniel, you want to give an update on yours?
Sure, a little bit, but yeah, I think I do understand some of your problems with the administrative stuff. I'd rather talk about that in general. I wish that I could help. I've learned, my tendency to be distractible and want to do everything. I think one of the biggest things I've learned as I've matured is to focus. Nothing, it's going to be hard to be successful in certain things if I don't realize, oh, I wish I could, jump in and help you with that administrative stuff. But if I don't focus really hard on one thing at a time, then it's all just going to kind of be shaky. Because I really hear your concern. And, maybe if I do some crazy time management, like I could help. But then again, it's like, I don't want that to be done half-assed, and I empathize. I hear your concern. Keep putting it out there, and hopefully somebody will respond before I can get there, because I do believe in what you're doing. So I hear that. My updates, how do I keep it short? We had to hire a second developer. So that's been a new process for me. I guess the tough thing is, like, we already missed our first deadline, which I'm really sad about. But part of my method on promotion has been, I've made over 40 YouTube videos. I'm not doing like code in, what do they call that? Build live or something. I'm like just on the other side of that, but I've made over 40 YouTube videos trying to be very authentic and as open as possible with the process. Because if people are going to try my project or anybody's project, I think that really matters in today's world. And so I was telling people for a long time, we'll be done and launched by Halloween, October 31st, and we just didn't hit it. And so now I'm hoping that we'll be done before Thanksgiving, basically the end of November. The only way to do it is to hire a second developer, and that's okay. So there's some anxiety that we will be able to hit this in time, in the time that I've said. I had a advisor basically say, well, what's the big deal? It's like, well, the big deal is I've told people we're almost ready, which we are, but you can't put something out in public if it's not going to work 100%. There's some difficulties. Most of it is just maintaining mental, moral focus, like realizing it just takes time. I could keep talking a long time. I don't know what else to say. I had some interviews. It's been really weird. Like I was interviewed by a local TV station. I was interviewed by a newspaper. Like, it's kind of insane, getting all these messages from people. And what I don't have yet is like the full like business plan put together. And it's like, okay, now I got to learn how to do all that, but that's okay. I really believe in the project and that it can make a difference in people's lives. So that's my driving force. And I've gotten so much advice and help. I mean, this all started from you guys in so many ways. Like Bentley, I've got a session set up with Bentley to help me understand. I'm not a developer. So, he has his website with the Calendly thing. And so I think this is the second time I've said, hey, man, give me an hour. I don't know what he's going to charge me this time, which is, I'm totally fine. It's really helpful advice. Like he's been in this space like of development way longer than me. And so even somebody like Bentley, I mean, has been so helpful to me. Just the 1 hour he gave me at one point early on to help me like get a big handle on someone who's not a developer, like just getting that advice was so helpful. I wonder if Jubilee, you can do something where you say, look, this is not my area of expertise, but find someone who can't put in the time, but can tell you, like, here's the framework you need, at least as a starting point. That's kind of what Bentley did for me. Like, how do I go from idea to an app? Like, give me the roadmap, sort of.
That would be helpful because I have tons of ideas for apps, and but it's more on letting the process play out. Like what I am doing has never been done before, and like we haven't gotten to the world beyond capitalism. We haven't gotten to that, and so the like figuring out how to do, I don't remember what it's called either, the build out loud thing, but like doing that on a meta scale together where it's like giving that feedback into like what worked and what didn't work, and I'm doing the best I can in the medium that I have, right? YouTube and TikTok. I'm wondering if you, business plan wise, one, do you need a business plan? Are you like going for grants or like, are there people who are like, yes, we need to see a business plan, or do you just want to do a business plan?
Technically, I don't need one. I had a guy contact me who is potentially very interested in investing, and that type of person needs to see this thing called a business plan, which is a very specific thing. A business plan has these different parts to it, and like I made one before like 10 years ago when I was learning entrepreneurship, and like yeah, it's a specific thing. He's asking for let's like a 6-page document with these specific parts, and I technically don't need one. But it's because, yeah, since getting some press, a lot of people have contacted me. And I've got to be very careful, like who I talk to, which is different than open source. I don't know if open source is very different, but I'm not open source. And the business plan is more about, yeah, if there's grants or funding, like these people need a way, like it's kind of about creating a mechanism for them to give money to the project and then have a type of contract so that they can have a return in a few years. Or maybe they lose their money. Who cares? Like who knows? There's no guarantee with if this will be successful, but they need to kind of see if there is an actual like roadmap. And I think that's the business plan part of it. Because one thing I said really early on was, yeah, it's possible to have actual investors and whatever, but I think maybe I'm naive, but I think that if something is going to be successful, it could be successful with zero like outside investors. Like it should be able to stand on its own. There are, from what I've studied, there are exceptions. Like if you have a physical product or medical devices or something, sometimes there's like no way to do it without capital injection. But apps, because you just have labor issues basically because the upfront cost is so low. An app could technically be successful without like big cash injections, because the physical cost is low of the parts you need, right?
So for the investor, and I guess for your app in general, when you talked about having people contribute to the project, I guess that's one part, like probably something like Patreon or Kickstarter. I'm guessing, is that the main, I guess, plan for monetization, or are there other ways? Like at the core of the business plan, what would be the way that the project could make money and pay back an investor?
What we want to do is we want to do like a sticker sort of thing. So letting people customize their profile by having like a store in the app where you can buy stickers that like let you personalize things. So it's like the
Okay,
app, kind of like, Facebook has, you can personalize some things, a cover page and blah, blah, blah. We want no ads because ads is what lets the negative, really negative stuff creep in. So I thought people are used to that. People buy bumper stickers for their cars and put stickers on their laptops, and people buy Nikes instead of something else because they want to show off their personality. So I thought, what is like a pretty ethical way to fund the app? We let people buy, and there might be free stickers too. Like, so everyone can participate, but then we'll have this section where it's like, okay, you buy this fancy looking sticker, you can stick it on your profile, and that's the idea.
cool.
Might not
That,
work. I don't know.
yeah, no, I think that's a good way to do it. I think that makes sense. Like the sort of, almost the gamified, like some way that you're not seeking money from giant corporations, which I think to your point is kind of how we got here.
Yeah, that's the main hope. Is like if you watch this social media space, everything has gone awry with the advent of these major advertisers. And once the advertisers are driving your decision making, you have to start to go dystopian, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I find interesting about advertising is I think a lot of the areas where Facebook got in trouble weren't the big advertisers. It was the weird, small, niche, like, oh, you want to start an ad campaign that just so happens to be trying to start a genocide somewhere? Well, it's not here and it's money, so whatever. Um, I wonder how much of it, like, if you were to start a almost like a publicly owned advertising company where you're like, if I choose to be advertised to, what ads should those be? A, I should be able to say what I'm interested in. And then also, no, you can't have giant flashing red ads. I don't want to see that.
Sure. Well, and okay, I'll just say before I talk more about this that this is not the current plan for my app, but it's fun to talk about ideas. So
Right.
one idea was, um, so some apps have things where there's like a discover page where they keep the ads out of your main area, but you can go over here and then you see ads.
Right.
So it's sort of contained. But to take that to the next level, what I thought is, what if, and I'll just say, we're not doing this right now, but what if instead of just serving people either random ads or they had some piece of data to target your ads, what if instead it was like a blank page with a search box and you could say, actually, I'm looking for such and such product. And I understand what you're saying, where it's like, if you have an app you can control, you can say, we want only these certain degree of ethical companies to get ads.
I'm
But
talking
what
about
if,
more the other way around, like as not as you, the app owner, right? Saying like, what ads do you want to see on your app? Because you probably want to avoid the sketchy ones. Although I guess probably also that. And we're talking about me as a user. If I'm going to be using your app and I want to use the advertising option, I sign up for an account. I tell it what I'm interested in. Okay, I like
oh,
video games and music and this and that. you don't need to show me ads for sports. I have zero interest in sports. Don't waste your time or my time. And so then I'm not bothered by ads I don't care about. And that's actually, if you do it properly, really appealing to advertisers. Because instead of these broad, like, just throw money at the wall and see what happens, this is no, these people raised their hand and said, I'm interested, in video games or a specific kind. And then you say, hey, if you have this kind of video game, we have 10,000 people that want to see your ad.
Yeah, I think that's probably a more ethical way to go about it.
I mean, there's a lot to get there, but I think that is the only way that I've thought of like, how could you do advertising? Because it powers so much of the internet just because it's sort of the least friction, right? You don't have to ask somebody for their credit card or any of that stuff. It's just, hey, do you have time and attention? Cool, go watch this and we're even.
Yeah. And I thought the search thing, like, what if I already know? Okay, I'm looking for diapers. So I type in diapers and it feeds me people who have signed up into however ads work, like it'll show them that, but it won't show you anything unless you type it in first. I was
Right.
like, but I understand what you're saying as well. There's options.
Yeah, I think it ends up being similar where it's just you're going to your page and saying, I'm looking for this stuff. You tell it sort of once, and maybe also a one-off, hey, I'm looking for a bed, but when I buy one, I'm going to take it off because I don't need to keep seeing ads for beds. Like how on Amazon, you buy like something that you obviously only need once and they keep showing you ads for it. You're like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not collecting toilet seats now. That's not what's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely not my area of expertise.
Yeah, but I think to your point, yeah, it's an interesting topic, but one that you're like, really want to go too far down it because advertising is a weird area, and it does cause a huge amount of the issues that we're all trying to solve.
Yeah, like I I hope we can just stay away from that completely. That would be ideal.
Agreed.
I was distracted. I was trying to look for I sent them to you, Daniel, on Messenger if you saw some alerts come up. When I went to Hippie Business School, I couldn't remember what the name of it was. Called Lean Canvas Startup. It's like a one-page business plan to fill out.
Oh,
And I sent you a YouTube video that I have not watched, but when I was looking it up, there was like a 9-minute YouTube video on how to fill out a lean canvas. They're doing it for Uber. So if you find, like, just Google lean canvas, you can find any image of it and fill that out. And I also sent you a Google Doc on, they have like a long form business plan and, like put mission statement here, put this here. So it's a copy of it. I don't know if you have to be like, I don't know if I own it, and therefore I can give you anyway. Just see if you can make a copy and use it and type it in.
Hey, I really appreciate that. The weirdest part of a business plan to me is this projection part where you say like, okay, here's our thing, like assuming we sold so many product in this amount of time, this would be the revenue. And it's like, it's just an estimation. Like, how can I even begin to make an assumption? Like, if 1 out of 100, say we had so many users, and I said, okay, what if let's say 1 out of 10 people bought a sticker once a year, then we would make such and such amount per year of income. Like, how can I even begin to assume it's 1 in 10 people? What if it's 1 in 100? What if it's 1 in 2 people buy a sticker 3 times a year? How can I even begin to estimate that? I have no clue.
Yeah, those things, I always find it dumb because really what they're asking you to do, they're saying, lie to me.
Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
lie to me. Use big numbers and make me think that I'm going to be rich. And if you don't lie to them, then you're actually at a disadvantage to the people who do lie. It's a really weird thing where, like, I've known business owners that have done business plans. They're like, I did a real one, and they're like, oh, these aren't used to the numbers I'm seeing, and they were talking to them, and the person knew they were being lied to. They're like, yeah, I know it's usually this, but they inflate it. And she's like, wait, so are you asking me to inflate my numbers to meet the, like, I'm confused what's going on here.
It's also
And
like
yes,
people
that's
do
what he
that
was asking.
where it's like Google makes this amount, and they hear in crypto all the time. It's like Bitcoin went up 1,000,000%. Right, and the chances of yours doing that is next to zero. You can't look at the success stories and expect that yours is going to be the same, but then there's people out there who do that. or like this is $1 trillion idea because I added together all the $1 billion companies that I'm going to be helping. And it's like that you didn't like, to me, I want the vision, and the numbers don't really, you're exactly right. Depending on if 1% of people buy the stickers or 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,000,000, here's our numbers. And they're like, no, assume Bill Gates is going to be your spokesperson and the world will buy them. It's like, but that seems ridiculous. And that is, our entire system is based on that. I mean, the entire tech industry is based on unicorns, and even after 3 or 4 bubbles, right? Like,
Yep.
people looking for millions of dollars to do their projects. Exactly what you said. They're not like, there's room for powerful money. And yet the way that it's currently done, it's the opposite of helpful. It's like everything's overvalued and overpromised and underdelivered. And then the ones that are successful are honestly running on deficit. Like, none of the top companies make money. Like Amazon, I think, even loses money, although they also are making billions of dollars. Like, none of this makes sense.
Yeah, that's more strategic that they don't make money, right? Because they spend it all on growth, and that's why they don't pay taxes. I mean, one of the many reasons why they don't pay taxes. But
Yeah, this reminds me, I found a company recently. I almost wanted to apply. They have some openings. Oh, great. Now I can't find it.
Which I have to say is the one advertisement maybe we could have is like, after you found something, to be like, that it saves it for you. It's like, you saw this advertising. Like, what was that toilet seat that I saw that I actually, now I am in need of a toilet seat, and I want to refine it.
And if you had an account that you told that it could totally say, hey, here's your account, here's all the ads we've ever shown you.
Okay, here it is. There's a company I found that I don't know how to pronounce this. It's called Armillaria. I'll put it in this chat. And what they're kind of like a nonprofit. What they're doing, this might be fascinating to people. It's fascinating to me. What they're doing is they're really recognizing that there is something like the money that needs to get to nonprofits, like, is all gummed up and stuck. And their mission basically is to, can you guys hear me? Their mission is to figure out solve the problem of money that needs to get to NGOs and nonprofits and get it ungummed up. And they talk about how most of the money is going to the largest NGOs, but their understanding is that to make the biggest impact, like, instead of $100 million going to one huge NGO, that $100 million would be way better spent if it was split up across 1,000 smaller NGOs. And they want to use data to help.
Is that about grants and stuff, or is that about like personal donations?
I think it's more about company and personal donations. They have a bunch of information online. I found this through like a humane tech site, and I was like, this is really interesting. But it goes to the point of money being not well spent and spread out. It's insane the way we're doing it.
I keep losing us. I watched a TED Talk, and I haven't been able to re-find it, and it was on the power of like admin work, ironically enough, and how like people don't want to give money to admin work, right? Even though that's some of the most powerful work you can do, like to actually tear down the bureaucracy or actually look at where money goes and there's no will there, so there's no money there. So they kind of have to, like, show you the panda because it's cute and fluffy, but the money isn't all going to the panda. It's also going to the insects that are actually doing the work and all this stuff. And it was like, I think it was mosquito nets. I don't know if mosquito nets were the thing they did want to donate to or not want to donate to. I think that they did want to donate to it, but there were other things that were more effective that could be done on a community level, but you don't know you're buying a mosquito net. So it feels less empowered, but it's actually more empowered. And anyway, just the irony that we're not looking, even as donors, to have the biggest impact. We're looking to feel the best. And so if they can tell us the story in a way that, like, yeah, tell me about the mosquito nets, even if the money's going to a copyright, photocopier. Just pretend it's mosquito nets. I don't know.
Yeah, people are so much more emotionally driven than sometimes we realize. And we have to realize that like our perspective on how like you and I and the people here make decisions might not be average. Um, and those emotional decision making mechanisms are actually probably way more effective in general than we wish that they were sometimes. But like, it's like there's a term that I heard called life on life's terms. And it's like, if that's the way it is, then we got to play. In a game B sense, it is this game B needs to outcompete game A. Like, we're ethically driven, we're humanity driven. We can't pretend like we can just not outcompete game A. We have to be smart about it.
Yeah, that outcompeting game A is we're already in game A's world. So it's like sort of I like the living life on life's terms because yeah, it's if your plan doesn't include reality, then maybe revisit your plan. Because if you're like, if reality worked this way, okay, let me stop you. Does it? No. Why are we talking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just be at the very beginning, when I asked you, Daniel, what your view of peer coaching was. I don't know if it came off wrong or I was asking you to do admin work, because that was not what I was asking. Because for the admin work specifically, what I know will come, even though it won't necessarily be from the game B space, there are people who enjoy admin work, who that is their thing that they like. They just aren't like, we happen to have the same skill set. And I think that tapping into what people like to do and are good at, and they feel like it's contributing to the bigger, world changing picture, is how we change it. And yet it's like our current society understandably is full of both rich people doing volunteer work, i.e. interns and stuff, and it's how our economy works, and then poor people and people like, I can't afford to work for free. How dare you ask me to work for free? And it's like, yes, but I'm not Google. I'm not Facebook. I'm not like, you actually are working for free for Facebook and Google constantly. If you can use that same energy, the energy you use, right? No one has to ask, have you done enough hours on Facebook today? Have you put in your time on TikTok? Then you don't, it's like, no, it's enticing you to be there. And if we can like figure out how to allow people to find the area, it's just coordination, which is its own app, which is then its own, it has its all its chicken and eggs that oh, we just need to make a new system that no one will use. That
Yeah, I didn't hear you asking me specifically to do something, although I would like to help when I feel like I can focus on that. Life is so crazy right now with what I've got going. If I do not laser focus at this moment, but I probably could help. Yeah, I hope you can attract. I really believe in what you're doing, so I if you're listening and you have not gone to one of Jubilee's and others, it's a collective peer coaching things. Check it out. Give it a few tries. Don't judge on your first experience. Not only can it benefit you, but it's a chance to share your wisdom with other people, and it's really, really cool. And it has potential to grow. And and so yeah, if you have administrative skills, think about. I mean, I wonder, Jubilee, could you put a number on like, do you need one person to give 2 hours a week, one person to give 1 hour a week? I wonder if you defined it, that could help.
I love the like, what's the word? Safety that no one's going to watch this. So like, like, sure, let's just do the proprietary information. that
did I say something bad?
no, you didn't say anything bad at all. And this is where I was like, how much, because I know you've come to peer coaching, and peer coaching is powerful in and of itself, but there's weave associated with peer coaching that is how we get to 10,000 people and how we have a bunch of money to create all the projects. And part of that, what was missing from my previous ones, just like the Netflix of apps, and hey, if everyone put in $10 and we had 10,000 people, we'd have $100,000 a month. It still doesn't entice people in. And this one is, we have room for 12,000 people to make an essential freedom fund, basically a company generated UBI, so that people can concentrate on what they want to do in the world. So we're going to release 12,000 people from game A to their personal game B. And yet I don't like, so for the admin work, there's room for 12 people to be invited to the board of directors. And one of those people would be an admin person, right? Who does like the email list and does that. But 4 hours a week is the maximum. And that's if you're in that 12. After that, the rest of the 12,000, it's going to be determined on a point basis. How many peer coaching did you attend? How many people did you invite? How many, like whoever contributed the most to the success of the collective, the success of weave, gets paid out next and next and next and next. And so I don't want people who are there because they're going to get paid. And yet at the same time, it's both like, yeah, volunteer now. And if you believe in this project, you get to make $10,000 a month once your thing comes up, 3,000 and then 10,000. And that's not millions of dollars, right? It's enough to de-stress almost anyone's life, right? To where you don't have to work, and you can pick your passion projects, and you can choose how you can improve your health, you can improve your relationships, your time, and your resources. And so that was kind of what I was asking, was like, how much of an inkling did you have on like that exists, and that is also what's happening with peer coaching?
Yes, sounds good. I have ideas, maybe like how you could attract more people. Like, I don't know if you even have a website yet, but like, would it help to get reviews from people who have been coming, where I can leave a quote and just say, I want to leave a review, because right now it feels like it's still a lot of word of mouth, and people have to kind of trust their gut or something. But if I was invited to something and I was like, here's the website, read some reviews, and there were like 12 reviews of real people that said, this is how this has benefited me, then I might be more inclined to go. So
yeah,
like,
and all those things are in the pipeline, kind of, sort of, not all. Like neither me or Kylie is going to make that website. So once someone comes on board who's like we know there needs to be one, but it's like, it's not at the stage where it's somebody's passion, it's what somebody wants to do. And so that's part of like how to entice people in to be part of the 12, is part at the same time, not the wrong people, not the people that are only there for the money. Because quite frankly, if they're only there for the money, they're going to nearly make it not succeed, right? Because it's like, wait, why aren't we getting paid yet? This might take a year. It might take 10 years. If you're not here for the process, that's not going to work. But 40 hours of volunteer work for 10 years, then you make $10,000 a month for the rest of your life, is pretty damn good. There's nothing else that can offer that, not in our existing system, unless someone rips off this idea. And which is, I haven't given the full idea, but I've given enough of it that someone might be able to piece together parts of it. Anyway, that there's room for people to use their skill set, but I don't want the people who are just like, I could do admin work. We've had that in here at Together Tech, and it's like people come and go because it's not their passion. It's like, I need it to be your passion, both the thing we're doing, the peer coaching and weave, but also that the admin work piece of it is like, it's detrimental. We need someone who can, like, if there was the admin person already, and that's you're talking more like the tech person, right? The person who do the websites and stuff. We need the admin person first, because like you need to be able to collect the emails and send the stuff out there and be like, when people come, you have to keep inviting them. So we need an email list. We need to be like what I do on Messenger of like, yeah, it's happening today. Here's the topic. Invite your friends, and a way to track it. We absolutely could use a website. It's just neither of us have been, what's the word? inspired to create one. And that's kind of what we're running on, right? Is inspiration. Like once it's ready to happen, it will happen. And it is absolutely word of mouth. It's designed to 100% be word of mouth. It's supposed to be, right? I invite 4 people who invite 4 people who invite 4 people and invite 4 people, because the trust level there is like, we're not going to have random people. We're going to have less chance of agent provocateurs. We're going to have, that doesn't mean that everyone's okay and everyone's going to be invited. But generally speaking, I've only encountered a handful of people since encountering Game B where I'm like, I would not want you to be part of this. Most people, I'm like, yes, if you're a decent human being. And I mean decent, not stellar. Like, just, you don't go around kicking puppies. I'm good.
Yeah, it's good to hear you explain the potential issues that you see. So that's good. I'm not sure I've heard it explained so explicitly before. It's like, yeah, these are real potential issues that you see. It's not always the fun part to talk about because we like to be positive and whatnot, but realistically, yeah.
Julie, have you ever had conversations with the people who haven't, told friends and stuff? Just be like, what would it need to do? What would it need to look like? What's it missing? Like, is there somebody in your life that you're almost there? You're like, yeah, they might be interested, but ...
There's most people, the feedback is just not right at this moment because I'm not free right now, right? I'm working on Tuesdays at that time period, or that, and which is the point is we're growing to the point where there will be multiple time slots. Like, I want people to know, to be there for peer coaching, because peer coaching is powerful in and of itself, but also the other piece of it's even more powerful, right? Someone else could do peer coaching. They wouldn't need to be involved in Weave, and it would be amazing. And there's, I get advice from your peers works. But on top of that, it's like to get to a threshold of people so we can make the social media, instead of like, hey, someone else decides to make one, their version of what it is, and someone else decides to make their version of an information system. Because that's what we're doing right now in Game B, right? Everyone has their idea and we run with our own projects, which then it's much more risky, right? Like, the chance of the project succeeding it's 1 in 10, if that, right? As most tech projects. But when we already have the people, when you have 10,000 people say, hey, we want a website that tells us who to vote for, and they're designing it together and they're saying what they would want it and not want it to be, then even though it's not necessarily guaranteed to work, right? The beta is not guaranteed to be any better than Adriel's beta. But you have people who are 10,000 people who are committed to it working and being like, oh yeah, I didn't like it because of this.
Yeah, you start off any project with a huge head start, right? You've got money and audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is what the 12,000 founders is, because 12, like, it's like you literally just have to put $25 a month in. I don't care if you never invite anyone. I don't care if you come to one peer coaching and nothing else. That's not true. You have to come to 4 to 6 to be part of the founders, but whatever. Once you've done that, you don't ever have to come again. If you're just putting the $25 a month in, you'll be one of the founders and you'll eventually get paid out your money. But the next people aren't founders, right? They're just members, and everyone has equal say when we're voting on stuff, but you don't get an essential freedom fund.
Jubilee, have you had any people come that wanted to really change what you're doing or how you're doing it? And the reason I ask this is because, although, like, just from my personal perspective, I know, hey, I have my flaws, right? And doing the project I've been doing right now, and we all know sometimes it's so hard to work with other people, and you're giving up parts of what you think is the right way to do things. And like, one of the reasons I started to go off on my own with my project is I had a vision that I really did not want to diverge from. And when I did try to bring people in, they were adding pieces that I felt like were not as hardline ethical. Like, for example, Ruva has no comment system. There's no way to leave comments, and there's a reason for that. The reason's important. It's not important for this, but I had folks like, no, we do need a comment system. And I'm like, I can't. It's just a different way of thinking about it. And if we had a vote or something, I don't know, whatever. I'm like, I think the most ethical type of social media has no comment system. And here's why. And they think it does. And they say, here's why. And so that's the tricky. You want to design a voting system or whatever. And it's like, oh, you want to bring 10,000 people and vote on this. Will you actually end up with the most ethical way to do it? I don't know. Have you run into something like that, Jubilee, where you're like, we're doing this for a reason, and somebody's like, no, but blah blah blah, and it's
oh yes, all the friggin' time, which is like my own personal journey, right? Of like, you're touching my baby and you're changing it, and it's like I learn and grow. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times Kylie's been like, maybe we could try this. And I'm like, nah, it won't work because of X, Y, and Z. And then give me 4 weeks. And I'm like, what about this? She's yet to say, I told you so. Yet to say, isn't that what I said 4 weeks ago? But I know, we know it's the same thing. And anyway, it's funny because it's like, I'm a no until I'm a yes. Like, it's like I can't compromise for compromise sake. It can't be the like, oh yeah, because Kylie said it, I can take it at face value. I trust her. She's amazing at what she does. She has a vision that like for the world. We have different and similar visions at the same time. But what I'm creating is like a system to do that, right? So therefore, like for peer coaching, it's different. For WeWeave, it's different. But there's like, if we're voting for 10,000 and there's an app, the point is most people get most of what they want most of the time. I don't get to decide what the app is, right? I can put my say in, but it's like you can't have everything in an app, but it's like what will give the most people what they need, right? So if the most people, so in your case, right, where you're trying to create a new social media program, if we were doing that together, what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? And I think with Ruva, it was to not have a social media platform that was addictive, right? To have it so that you're not needing to spend time on it. You can be in the real world, but still be connected online. So you would give that, right? Or like people would be focusing on how do we make social media less addictive if they want that, right? Because as much as we want that, if we're still on TikTok and we're still on Facebook and we're still on Twitter, really what it's doing is we're just not spending time on the addictive one, right? But if we're like, hey, we're going to commit to I'm going to try to only use this one because I want to not be addicted to social media and I want to connect and I want it to have these needs, but I don't want it to keep giving me these dopamine hits that I keep getting more for, then we could create the thing that gives me what I need. Maybe I want a comment section, but you don't want a comment section, right? And so you don't need to see the comments. You don't need to decide, I want likes to be hidden for me, but you want likes to be seen. There can be a way for most people to get what they want. But it's finding that balance, right? You're doing it for 10,000 people. I'm not creating it and then selling it to 10,000 people. That might also happen because it might be someone has a great idea of like, IMBD for politicians. We can vote, but there's still going to be a core group of people who's doing the stewarding and doing the like actual work. And it's like, hey, that wasn't feasible. We couldn't put that in the beta for whatever reason. And then there's also the fringes, the people who like do need certain features or benefits to a system and they can't use it without it. And knowing that, right? There's people who have disabilities or people who have very unique needs who are like, hey, if this doesn't have this, I can't use this at all. So making sure that it works it's not just about working for 90% of the people, right? Because if you're the same 10% all the time, like
and with the comment system, the people that talked about that, I just was like, you're talking about a different app. Because they're like, well, we want an app that will help us solve problems together, like some kind of special sort of message board, like Discord or something. And I just said, that is a different app in the ecosystem. That's just not what this one is. This is very specific. And I get what you're saying, Jubilee. Like maybe one day we say, you can use Ruva and you get a checkbox, like put it in the hands of the people. And they say, I want to be able to do comments, but you can turn it off. That would be cool. So it's just not where we're starting from, but that's cool. That's hard. That's next level programming. Like that'll take time.
Was if it's a problem you're solving, getting this people who are trying to solve that problem The issue is because we're big picture thinkers, although it's really hard to say, like, what problem does the Netflix of apps solve that I'm so obsessed with creating, right? It's like it solves literally everything. So it's the system I'm trying to create, but we're going to have to break it down to problem by problem, right? Of like, hey, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Because then if you can articulate that, then you can bring people on board who are solving that problem. Then you can have the conversation of, do comments lead to addiction or not addiction, right? As opposed to your vision being the thing. That being said, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and I've had to have so much personal growth for like, stop touching my baby. Like, it's like, I want everyone to come on board and be a part of it, and don't you dare fucking change it. And it's like, that doesn't work together. So I've like created and disbanded so many projects. And I, like Together Tech, I didn't bring WeWeave and peer coaching to Together Tech and be like, this is ours now. It's like, it feels like it has to be the next thing because it's like a new vision, and it's like, if you're on board for that, great, come be part of this one. But I haven't quite figured out how to do that with people. And that's hopefully what peer coaching and WeWeave does, so that that's what solution raising was supposed to be, of like, we designed this together, we have the momentum. But a lot of it's my own shit of like, ooh, you don't see the big picture, you don't see how comments are going to change it, right? You don't see the bigger vision. And so it's like, really what you're asking people to get on board for is your full vision, but without a business plan and without that full vision laid out, there's always going to be that conflict. You either kind of have to have the problem that you're going to co-solve together, and then, like, have that say, which is hard, or your vision laid out where you're like, this is what's happening. It doesn't mean it can't change at all, but there's going to need to be a good reason. And I'm the one who decides whether, things are in or out. That's as long as it's transparent to you and them, that works. And that's partly what works with Kylie and me, is although I feel like she sees this as my project. And so when she has her own, commons project and her own stuff that she's working on, it's ours. Like, but at the same time, it's like, I'm the one who's like, oh, I figured out how to do this and I figured out how to do that. And she brings that too. But it's like, I'm the yes, no, even though eventually the whole point is that it's not that, right? The whole point is that eventually there isn't one person in charge. Everyone has a voice. Everyone decides where the money goes. Everyone decides what we're creating together. But we have to be a little bit fascist till we get there, right? Of like, we're doing it anyway. So it works because she I don't know, it just works. She's just like the perfect pair to meet with once a month and deals with I don't like it. Oh, I came to invest on my own things.
Reminds me of like our ability to do experiments. Like, if we had the right amount of resources, we could try 100 different experiments with and run them all, and then let evolution take its course. And like Adriel, although I don't keep as much track on your project, it's like even A/B testing, right? Like, what if we put the vote button up here or down here? Or if the graph was this way instead of this way? It's like, in an ideal world, you could make 100 versions, let them all run, and then whichever one was working best, and you just start to eliminate the other ones. Or they could like work together, whatever. Yeah. And it's just not what we live in.
Also want to start to record that, because if I've already done that testing and then you come in a year later and say, hey, I'm thinking about the buttons. Oh, someone already did this testing. Oh, and found that it was 80% in that direction. You might not just go with it, but that might guide your test where you're like, oh, interesting. I wonder if it was this or that. I'm going to do now an iteration on that test and improve it. So it's sort of like, it's basically science at that point. Just the completed, like, use the results to guide the next one. Or that's what individual companies do, but that's like Microsoft spends millions of dollars on that, and Google spends millions of dollars on that. Apple spends millions of dollars on that. They don't share a damn thing.
That's what this group Amarillia I posted is doing. That's like kind of one of their core things is they say, here's another big problem we see, is they call it siloed data, which is a good way to think of it. And it's like, you have all these NGOs. Some of them are doing similar things out in the world, which is fine. They're in different physical locations, but an NGO will spend a lot of time, resources, getting some data on a demographic or whatever, but then it's siloed and just they have it, when the 5 other NGOs who are trying to solve the same problem in another city they need to break out the data and be like, we already did that study. Here's the best thing to do. Instead, they're like siloed data between
Yeah.
companies
And
and
there's
everything.
also a bunch of probably like useless tasks being done. If those 5 were to be able to say, hey, here's what we're doing differently, we're going to keep doing that. Here's what we're doing the same. We each got a marketing person that's not doing full marketing. Let's just have 2 that we share. Like something along those lines where it's, oh, and we're all doing usability testing. How do we share that? How do we start to figure out where can we work together? But I think for any of the really important problems, you don't just want one. You never just want like, we've got everything on this, like even for my projects. Obviously, if I'm working on them, I think that they're a solution. Other people might not. Great, build your own. This is important enough that we want 100 different projects. As long as one of them works, that's all that matters.
And I am hoping that's partly what Weave can do, is like there's the project and the iteration, right? Where do we move the button? Where do we move that? And those are like more of the tweaking of the idea. But even in the very beginning stage, right? You have a problem, you do a solution raising on it. Food, we want food. We've had how many apps have we come up with to deal with food, right? The restaurant share idea, meal delivery, grocery shopping, how to, farm stays, whatever the things are. That could be one big thing, but what's the beta going to be? So part of it is that the beta is actually 10 betas, right? This one is the recipe share, this one is this one is that, different people working on the different ones, and people are using them. And as long as the data is kind of in from one pool, then when you come up with a new idea and a new project, you're not starting from zero. You have that data. It's just a new way to combine the data. And then if the user gets to decide, right, my food app, not in beta, more, 7-8 generations down, what does my food app look like, right? What do I want my meals for? And therefore, what widgets do I need to put together to create my app? But there's a way, when you have enough money, 10,000 people putting in $25 a month is $250 million. That can't be right. No. $250 million.
How many people did you say again? 10,000? Yeah.
10,000. 12,000. Yeah, no, I was like, wait, I was thinking of the other number when we're at it. Anyway, 100-fold times that. That's a lot of money for a startup that's not being invested by millionaires. That's a lot of money to be able to create projects, right? To be like, play with that, create that food app. Not, hey, we're $1 million. We have, we need. It's like, no, what is your actual burn rate, and how do we reduce that burn rate, and how do we create something that we want to use as the end user? And you have enough money and people to play, because it's not, hey. If we get really worried about the first project being successful, as opposed to learning from the process, right, and having something that's usable, it's partly also either as founders, because there's no catalog of usable, wonderful products at the beginning. You're kind of paying and choosing to be part of that iterative process, and part of getting money and people together. And then we have something. And once we have something, then people pay $25 a month for that.
What comes to mind, honestly, at this point is the game issue of greed, basically, because so I want my project to be successful, but the meta version of that is I want a healthy social media to be successful. So we all have our different projects that are focused on different areas. And it's like Adriel said, I'm working on this voting thing. I think it's great, but you want the best one to actually win, even if that's not yours. But you're still sinking time, energy, and resources working on it. And thing is, one of the things I see related to greed is what if I want to invest, ideally you just invest in all of them so that they could all grow to their fullest extent, and then the best one wins out. But the issue is that I want to be really choosy with my investment, so that I want to guess that the one that is going to win, that's the one I want to put my money on. So I just keep hedging my bets until I can figure out which one's going to win out. And even with my own, let's just say hypothetically, it starts generating money and it's generating 100K a year. And then I have to ask myself, do I need 100K a year? Maybe that's the point at which I take 40% of that and I throw it at other projects, even other social media projects, because just because mine is starting to have success doesn't mean there isn't still a better one out there. And it's like choosing not to say, well, I made it, I'm making my 100K a year. That's good for me. Like, it's the greed problem, I guess.
There's the issue when like money is the driving force, is both you're looking to invest in the one that's going to make the most money in the one, and whereas when you're problem solving, right, when you're looking at, making a social media that's not addictive, you're both in that arena, right? You're in the game, a competitive arena. That's where your customers are. You have to compete for their eyeballs and their attention. And because it's profit driven, it doesn't quite work. Where at the same time, if there's enough, and there's dozens and hundreds of people out there solving these problems, but they're in competition with each other and with game A. Whereas there is another level of like, when you suggested of like, hey, we want to help each other. We care more about solving the problem. If I can help you solve the problem, and then getting together and being like, well, yours has these features and ours has these features, and being able to say, hey, I mean, hopefully we're not going to put people out of business and be more like, hey, Adel, you're working on sense making. Bentley, you're working on sense making. We have hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not going to pay you hundreds of million dollars, so it's not worth it. But if you can come add your expertise, what is it worth, right? Because we can recreate what you've already done we can recreate what's already been done in any app collectively together. And so it's the chances that one is the best is next to zero. It's probably more likely it's 90% the best, but the other 10% is spread amongst the other ones, right? Like, it definitely doesn't have all of the features that we want, or it would truly be the best. It's like there's that trade-off. Whereas if you can look at, okay, well, here's who uses this one, here's who uses this one, and creating the thing that solves the problem, then you can have more of,
Sure. I love the way you frame it as problem solving rather than making money. So for example, like if I continue just to focus on mental health, then I could be fixing it in this social media arena. But maybe once there's a certain amount of profits, then all of that needs to just go towards other mental health topics. Like either that is some local getting that to psychotherapists or whatever. It's like if some company was created, I'll just say if Facebook was created to better connect people and that was all they wanted to do, then once they hit a certain profit, they should be creating a whole ecosystem of apps to choose from instead of just keeping it at one or two or three. And so at that point, if they're not spreading and experimenting a lot, then they're not actually problem solving. Then they're just in it for profit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, like, I say the Netflix of apps, right? Because I like to, anyway, think about it in that regard. It's like, to some degree, if Netflix, right, was like, hey, like, we want the character from this character from Sense8 and the world from this one, and that would be a horrible movie. But it would, like, there's something fun about picking those things out. With tech, you actually can, right? You can be like, hey, we want the feature from this one and the app from this one. We want this problem solved, and there can be a back end that is the data that is common amongst all the projects, and therefore you have the dashboard that is unique to the user, and making that more useful. But there is still ownership of the projects, right? That we don't want to put all our time and energy into something that's not successful, especially if there's a game A1 that's successful, right? Like, that's my worry. I have a little bit of like, oh God, if someone stole my idea, they would be the one that becomes a millionaire, or they would be the one who gets to pick the 12,000 people to get the Essential Freedom Fund. Okay, my ego can handle that, but I don't want it to be for profit. If it's someone like, because it wouldn't work, right? If like Google did it, it wouldn't work. And yet they could maybe do it in a way where it breaks it enough that no one else could retry it. And so there's like a piece of it that this is the one thing I'm like, ooh, I'm not publicly explaining how this works. You have to kind of be in the inner circle to know, to come and hear what it's about. I don't remember what my point was, but we are 5 minutes past the hour, so we should probably wrap it up. Does anyone have any closing thoughts before we reconvene next month for roundtables?
Good discussion.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed that.
All right. Bye, YouTube and Facebook. See you in December.